WGN Exclusives investigates exclusive now. It's a mystery that shook Chicago more than half a century ago, and it's been partially solved.
It started with the abduction of a newborn baby from Chicago's Michael Reese Hospital in 1964. 2 years later, authorities thought they'd found the baby and turned him over to a suburban couple.
Only in recent years, though, did a DNA test prove he wasn't their biological child. Investigative reporter Ben Bradley joins us now with what he uncovered.
Joe and Micah, all these years later, we have learned the identity and tracked down that stolen baby. He's now a 55-year-old man who has been in touch with the FBI.
The tragic tale began April 26, 1964 at Chicago's Michael Reese Hospital. Dora and Chester Franzek had become the proud parents of a baby boy. But within 24 hours of giving birth, a woman dressed in white looking like a nurse took the baby from his mother's hospital room, saying the doctor needed to see him.
I'd like to know who I am, my birthday, how old I am.
This is the man who grew up believing he was Paul Franzek. 2.5 years after the abduction, authorities found a baby abandoned in a stroller in New Jersey. This was decades before DNA.
The FBI decided that because my ears matched the Franzek baby, that I was probably the Franzek baby.
Newspapers at the time quoted Dora Franzek looking at the child and saying, "That's my baby, it's Paul." Police had doubts, but Chester and Dora Franzek adopted the baby and raised him in Chicago as their own. It was a happy, healthy childhood. Only once did Paul suspect something was amiss, when he found old newspaper clippings describing the abduction. Fast forward several decades, and the man who believed he was Paul Franzek has a family of his own.
This is a lifetime story. This can't be true.
They live in Las Vegas and worked with reporter George Knapp of our sister station, KLAS, to investigate who he really is. Answers came with a DNA test.
There's no remote possibility that you are the Franzek baby. And I was like, wow.
So what happened to that baby? WGN Investigates chased a lead to rural Michigan, and we found him. That abducted baby is now 55 years old. He knew why we were there and said the FBI had been in contact with him about the Franzek case. His health is fragile, and he said he had some loose ends to tie up before speaking publicly. Because he's a crime victim and asked for privacy, we are not identifying him or saying where he currently lives. Here's what the man who grew up as Paul Franzek wanted in 2014.
Is the real Franzek baby still alive? Is it out there? And if it is, can we find it? Can we actually reunite it with my mom and dad?
Chester Franzek has since died, but the mother, Dora, is still alive. She declined to speak to WGN. The FBI, which has investigated this case on and off for 55 years, will only say, several years ago, the FBI reopened the investigation into the disappearance of Paul Joseph Franzek. Our investigation into this matter remains ongoing as we continue to pursue all leads. We ask for privacy for the victims as we continue to investigate the facts surrounding this case.
As for the kidnapper, there have been several suspects over the years, but no one has ever been charged. The man who was raised as Paul Franzek continues to use that name and continues to hope for more information about his actual identity.
All right.